You know, ladies and gentlemen, when you mention the word Blacula to people of a certain age, many things come to mind. If you mention the black community, it was pretty well one of the biggest hits of the blaxploitation genre of the late 60s, early 70s. But for Canadians, we're saying to ourselves, oh, this is going to give Gordon Pinson his big break in the States after more than a decade as one of the top actors and thespians in Canada. Well, Blacula became an international sensation, but the predicted international sensation for Gordon Pinson didn't hit, but he came back to Canada and was one of the most respected actors for decades, and the Sarah Polley movie Away From Her put him back in the international spotlight some 37 years later. So we're going to go into Blacula, not about Gordon Pinson as much as we should. We talked about in the previous podcast. But boys, oh boys, oh boys, oh boys, ladies and gentlemen. What a interesting and fascinating and exciting movie. Directed by William Crane. Came out in 1972. Now, Blacula, of course, is a play on Dracula, but a black Dracula. It stars again William Marshall, a great thespian, best known from Star Trek before that in a title role, about an 18th century African prince named Mamawaldi, who was turned into a vampire and later locked in a coffin by Count Dracula in a count's castle in Transylvania in 1780, after Dracula refused to help Mamawaldi suppress the slave trade. Now, it released to mixed reviews in the States. It became a critical darling later on as one of the top-grossing films of the year. It was the first film to receive an award for Best Horror Film at the Saturn Awards, and Blacula was followed by the sequel, Scream, Blacula, Scream, not as good but pretty strong, in 73, and inspired a wave of blaxploitation-themed horror movies, including Dr. Black, Mr. Hyde, and Blackenstein. Now, in 1780, African Prince Mamawaldi goes to Transylvania to seek the help of Count Dracula in suppressing the slave trade. Dracula refuses, however, and insults Mamawaldi by making pass his wife Luva. After a scuffle with Dracula's minions, Mamawaldi is bitten by Dracula and transformed into a vampire. Dracula then curses him with the name Blacula and imprisons him in a sealed coffin in a crypt hidden beneath the castle, while leaving Luva to die in a chamber with Blacula. But in 1972, two gay interior decorators, Bobby McCoy and Billy Schaefer, purchased the coffin and shipped it to L.A. Bobby and Billy open the coffin, only become Blacula's first fabulous victims. At the funeral home where McCoy's body is laid, Blacula spies on mourning friends Tina Williams, her sister Michelle, and Michelle's boyfriend, Dr. Gordon Thomas, a pathologist for the LAPD. Blacula becomes obsessed with Tina, believing her to be a reincarnation of Luva due to her having an identical resemblance to the latter. See the parallels with Dark Shadows with Jonathan Fritz Barnabas. Now, Thomas noticed oddities with McCoy's death that he later concludes to be consistent with vampire folklore. Blacula follows Tina after leaving the funeral home, but intentionally frightens her. Tina runs away, and Blacula loses her when he is hit by a cab. He then kills the cabbie, Juanita Jones, turning her into a vampire. A female cabbie being sucked to death. Doesn't happen every day. Now, Thomas, Michelle, and Tina celebrate Michelle's birthday at a nightclub, and Blacula shows up to return Tina's purse she dropped the night before. Again, see the Dark Shadows parallels with the cane and the purse here. Thomas answers a phone call from the funeral director, who informs him that McCoy's body has gone missing. Blacula asks Tina to see him again the following evening, but he is interrupted by Nancy, a photographer who takes a picture of them together. Soon after, Blacula kills Nancy and destroys the photo she just developed, which shows Blacula conspicuously absent. The next evening, Blacula visits Tina at her apartment and shares how Dracula enslaved him in Luva and how he was cursed with vampirism. He and Tina then spend the night together. Now, Thomas, Lieutenant Jack Peters, played by, again, Gordon Pinson, and Michelle are meanwhile following the trail of murder victims as Thomas begins to suspect a vampire of being the perpetrator. After Thomas digs up Schaefer's coffin, the corpse rises as a vampire and attacks Thomas, who fends him off and drives a stake through his heart. Thomas calls the morgue and alerts Sam, the attendant, to take Jones's body out of deep freeze and leave. Sam rolls her body out but neglects to lock the door. Jones rises and immediately attacks and kills him. Thomas and Peters arrived in a morgue to find blood smeared on the corridor wall near the payphone where Sam answered the call, but no sign of Sam himself. They walk into an exam room by the freezer, where Peter sees a sheet-covered body lying on a gurney and pulls the sheet back to reveal Jones rising to attack him. A very effective scene, and Gordon Pinson, as a good Newfoundlander, plays with a maritime skill. Now, Thomas keeps her at bay with a Christian cross long enough to open the window blinds and expose her to sunlight, destroying her. Now, later that evening, Thomas, Michelle, and Tina are enjoying drinks at the club when Dracula arrives to pick Tina up. Thomas questions Blacula about vampires and makes it known that the police are planning a search for the vampire's coffin, provoking an uncoverable Blacula and Tina to leave. Soon after, Thomas searches Nancy's house and finds a photo negative of Tina standing in front of the invisible Blacula. He correctly deduces that Blacula is the vampire they seek, and that Blacula and Tina are still together. Thomas rushes to Tina's apartment, finding them embracing. Thomas and Blacula gleefully struggle, but Blacula knocks Thomas unconscious and flees, killing a police officer in nearby alley as he escapes. After McCoy is seen walking the streets of L.A., Thomas, Peters, and several police officers track Blacula to his hideout. They locate a nest of several vampires there, including McCoy, and destroy them, but Blacula escapes. Now, Blacula then hypnotizes Tina into going into his new hideout at a nearby underground chemical plant, while Thomas and the police pursue him. Blacula dispatches several of the officers, but one of them accidentally shoots and mortally wounds Tina. To save her life, Blacula transforms into a vampire. He fights the police, one of whom locates the coffin and alerts Thomas and Peters. However, Peters kills Tina with a stake, believing that Blacula would be in a coffin instead. Devastated and feeling he has no purpose to live, and after losing Louva a second time, Blacula commits suicide by climbing the stairs to the roof, where the morning sun destroys him. And again, a tremendous cast with, again, William Marshall, Denise Nichols, Vanetta McGee, Gordon Pinson, and Talmius Rasula as Dr. Gordon Thomas. And Alicia Cook Jr. Plays a bit part as well, as Sam, the morgue attendant. Now, many members of the cast and crew of Blacula had worked in TV, including Pinson. Now, director William Crane had directed episodes of The Mod Squad, while William H. Marshall's Mama Waldy was the first black vampire to appear in film. Marshall had previously worked in stage productions, an episode again, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Nurses, Star Trek, Bonanza, and Mannix. Talmusa Rusala, who plays Dr. Gordon Thomas, is best known for his roles in episodes of The Twilight Zone, Rawhide, and Perry Mason. Now, Blacula was in production between late January and then late March 1972. While Blacula was in the production stages, William Marshall worked with the film producers to make sure his character had some dignity. His character name was changed from Andrew Brown to Mama Waldy, and his character received a background story about being an African prince who had succumbed to vampirism. Blacula was shot on location in L.A., with some scenes shot in Watts, and the final scenes taken at a period outfall treatment plant in Playa del Rey. Now, finished in March, released a day before my birthday in 1972. Now, it opened in Washington, Dallas, Seattle, and Oklahoma City on August 25th, 1972. Now, the music for Blacula is unlike that of most horror films, as it features a funk soundtrack, as opposed to haunting classical musics. The film soundtrack features score by Gene Page and contributions by the Hughes Corporation and 21st Century Limited. Now, August 27 in Chicago, and did the good box office. Now, prior to its release, American International Pictures marketing department wanted to ensure that black audiences would be interested in Blacula, and some posters for the film including references to slavery. AIP also held special promotional showings at 2 New York theaters, and anyone wearing a flowing cape would receive free admission. Now, when word got around that the two gay characters were kind of profiled a little bit, didn't go over very well in the gay press, but it didn't really do good internationally, but was popular in America. It debuted at number 24 in Variety's list of top films. It eventually grossed over $1 million, and of course, much cast since, revival movies, DVD, VHS. Now, Scream Factory released the film on Blu-ray as a double feature with Scream, Blacula, Scream on March 2nd, 2015. Now, it did get mixed reviews on its initial release. Variety gave it a positive review for the screenplay, music, and acting, and the Chicago Reader also praised the film. However, A review from Roger Greenspun in the New York Times was negative, stating that anyone who goes to a vampire movie expecting sense is in serious trouble, and Blacula offers less sense than most. I tend to disagree. You got William Marshall and Gordon Pinsent in a movie, probably one of the best overall black actors of his generation. Gordon Pinsent, one of the best maritime actors, maybe the best ever from Newfoundland and Labrador, and neither one of them were seen in a movie before or since. It hits. Gordon Pinsent, for what he does in this movie, he gives legitimacy to his character, and William Marshall like the tortured Dracula. Now, among most recent reviews, Kim Newman of Empire gave the film 2 out of 5, finding the movie to be formulaic and full of holes. Time Out didn't like it as well, stating that it remains a lifeless reworking of heroes versus vampires with soul music and a couple of good gags. However, Film 4 awarded the film 3.5 stars out of 5, calling it an essential blaxploitation. Now, all movie gave the film 2.5 stars out of 5, noting that Blacula is better than its campy title might lead one to believe. The film suffers from the occasional bit of awkward humor, as the bits with the two homosexual interior decorators are the most squirm-inducing. Like I said, parody. Now, The Dissolve gave the film 2.5 stars, stating that the placement of an old-fashioned Bela Lugosi-type Dracula, albeit much, much sweatier, in a modern black neighborhood is a great idea, but the amateur's production leaves Marshall as stranded in the film as Mama Waldy is stranded in the Times. Now, Rotten Tomatoes, 46% on 28 reviews, 5.3 out of 10. Now, the box office success of Dracula sparked a wave of other black-themed horror films. Now, that year, it was battling against Dracula AD 72, which I've talked about on my channel, for the Dracula money. Dark Shadows, the two movies were pretty well out. The series was done. Now, a sequel to the film, titled Scream, Blacula, Scream, was released in 73. It had William Marshall in the title role, along with the beautiful and luminous Pam Grier. Now, American International was also planning a follow-up film titled Blackenstein, but chose to focus on Scream, Blacula, Scream instead. Blackenstein was eventually produced by Exclusive International Pictures. Now, in recent years, on June 17, 2021, it was announced that a reboot was in development. The film is planned to be a co-production between MGM, Bronze Studios, and Hidden Empire Film Group, with Roxanne Event producing and Deon Taylor and Micah Random co-writing. Taylor will also direct the film. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is it a top 20 horror movie of the modern era? No. Is it an important movie for the black audience? Yes. Just like The Fourth Planet of the Apes, which it's not a blaxploitation movie, but talks about aspects of slavery. People have to understand that the black culture was trying to reclaim things from themselves, and just like Aboriginal culture, we were taking some aspects of the white culture and putting us towards ours. Now, God bless his soul, Jeff Barnaby, the great director from Listigouche, Quebec, who passed away, did that great zombie movie, Blood Quantum, but he set it up that the white people had a zombie curse and the Aboriginals, most of them couldn't get it. Just as important as Blood Quantum has been to Aboriginal cinema in Canada the last 5-10 years, Blacula was. I'm not saying it's a direct parallel, because it's not, because the North Shore of New Brunswick and black people's experience in the States cannot be compared. But the same type of saying, taking white tropes and applying it to your culture. Okay? If you watch Blood Quantum, go watch it if you can get it on Crave in Canada or different places. Probably one of the most interesting social zombie movies of all time. And it's unfortunate Jeff passed away, because it would have been great to do either a prequel or a sequel. Because now in northern New Brunswick, when we see a salmon, we're thinking about the zombie salmon in the early part of the scenes. And when a black person sees Blacula again, they're reminded of the fact of Dracula, a white person, putting a curse on a black man because the black man was trying to take up for the black man. And it's not really stated why Dracula was supporting the slave trade, which maybe had something to do with more bodies coming over. I don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our vintage 1970 movie reviews and what they call historical essays, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or a super chat. Don't forget, requests are always accepted and always highly considered. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you see a black man looking like William Marshall, a little bit long in the tooth, on a dark road, don't pick him up. People in New Brunswick are like that. We pick people up who are hitchhiking. Don't pick up William Marshall. And in the words of Gordon Pinson, I like doing Blacula because I don't think there's been a movie like it since. I tend to agree. Thanks for listening. Bye.